Okay, that looks live on Twitch. Let's check YouTube. Yeah, there we go on YouTube as well. Oh. J'entends ma bébé qui chante. Oh oui. Oh oui.
Bébé?
Oui.
Dada. Baby. I'm the bud.
The Bud?
Yep.
Tu veux voir des échecs, toi?
Yep.
On va voir des échecs bientôt. Je vais juste mettre une annonce sur Twitter, ok?
Okay.
Bonne idée, n'est-ce pas? Ouais.
Baba. Baba. Oh, Dad! Oh, Dad! 1, 2, Dad! 1, 2, Dad. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. Wait, do. Oh.
Hey, Satsanga, how are you? Will we see the French defense today? Probably yes. In my experience, yes. Okay, so if someone were to navigate to the Chess Dojo Club and then scroll down a little bit. Oh, merci, un pull pour moi? Oh, ça pourrait être pratique.
Yeah.
Est-ce qu'on a froid?
Yeah.
Yeah, un peu?
Yeah.
Tu veux un pull, toi? Oh, non! Pas comme ça. Un fait. Tu veux ça? Oui? Okay. We got to do a few stickers here. 15 plus 5 is too long? Too long for what? Oh, je pense que tu as déjà fait à peu près la ferme, hein?
Yeah.
La ferme est en bon état.
Yeah.
Qu'est-ce qu'on a après? La savane, c'est bien aussi.
Yeah.
Le monde de neige. On pourrait peut-être ajouter quelques animaux ici, si on a plus.
Yep.
Tu veux que je regarde s'il y en a?
Yep. Oh, ooh. Yes.
Attends.
Okay.
Oh, il n'y en a pas beaucoup, mais quelques-uns. Tu veux cet hibou?
Yeah.
Qu'est-ce que tu veux? Oh, les renards?
Dad.
Je donne ça et on va prendre lui aussi pour après.
Okay.
Vas-y.
Dojo. No, but look.
Sur la pierre?
Mom.
Oh, celui-là, il veut dormir. Tu peux lui trouver un endroit très cozy?
Yeah.
Oui.
Yeah.
Hey, Perrin. Hey, Cross Online.
That is baby.
Oh, il fait comme un bébé sur le dos, il dort?
Yeah.
Oh. Ok. Tu veux faire ça? Ok.
Dad.
Tu commences avec miaou? D'accord.
I'm Daddy. I'm Daddy. I'm Daddy.
Tu veux ça aussi?
Daddy. Beep, beep. I'm Daddy. I'm Daddy. I'm Daddy. I'm Daddy. I'm Daddy.
Hey, Proud Altar, since you're in Twitch, you can hit !play, and it should give you the links for today's tournaments, I think. Oh, unless I did I fix all the links yesterday? I'm not sure. Hang on. Oh God, computer. Oh my God. I do not know what this computer is doing. And I don't have any hands with which to try to fix it. Let's see if Moobot's got this right. Un moment. Bébé. Je dois être sûr. No. Okay, the links were wrong in play. Let me fix them. Just a moment. Almost there. Okay, I've updated all those links. That should be right now. !play. That should have the correct links now. Updated for this week. Yeah, Boondock Striker saying that through chess.com, they were able to find and join it. Ouh, tu mets le toucan avec le toucan?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Galrav, how are you? C'est bien comme ça? Ok, on va chercher un autre. Donc là, c'est le jungle, n'est-ce pas? Et ça, c'est page 12. Ok, 12. Page 10. Oh, il reste pas beaucoup. Il reste le tapir, une fourmilière et des papillons. Qu'est-ce que tu veux?
Papillon.
Papillons?
Fish. Baby fish.
Oui. On peut faire l'eau après si tu veux. Oui. Oh, les poissons vont aller là, n'est-ce pas? Mais ici, pour les papillons.
Un bon.
Oui.
Deux.
Tu peux prendre le bleu.
Yeah.
Moi, je tiens celui-là pour toi aussi.
Un deux.
Là.
Un zéro.
Et l'autre va où? Presque dans l'eau? Ah non, sur les feuilles. Tu sais ce qu'elles aiment, les papillons? Ce qu'elles mangent?
Tiens.
Quoi? Le nectar dans les fleurs? Ok, tu veux ces deux-là ou tu voulais faire les petits poissons maintenant?
Un baby fish. Baby fish.
Voilà.
Ouais.
Voilà l'océan.
Ouais. Ouais.
Quoi? Regarde toute cette eau-là. Ça, c'est tout pour les poissons.
Non.
Qu'est-ce que tu voulais faire? Qu'est-ce que tu avais en tête? Où est-ce que tu pensais mettre les poissons, toi? Sur une autre page? Où est-ce que tu allais mettre les poissons?
Mommy, baby. The baby.
Mhm. Mais ici, l'eau est gelée. C'est pas pour ces petits poissons-là. Ok, d'accord.
Yep, yep. A two book.
Mhm.
Gaga.
Tu veux faire ça?
Yep.
La maison?
Yep.
T'as le chat? On a joué de quoi? Le chien? Non, t'as déjà fait. So folks, what this event is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's an arena, so it's as many games as you want to play, or as few, or as many, right? And it's going to run from 9:30 to 12:30. It's going to run for 3 hours long. 15 plus 5 counts for Dojo Liga points. And of course, just for fun. Looks like after a million weeks of being busy, I'll finally get to do commentary today. So I'm looking forward to it. It's been a while since we've watched one of these rapid tournaments together. And for me, 9:30 is in 13 and a half minutes. So that's when the tournament will kick off. Till then, if anyone has any questions about how to join or what it'll be, if anyone's new in any way, let me know. And if you have other unrelated questions, now's a fine time for that as well. Voilà la maison. Qu'est-ce que tu veux? Ah, wow. Une sorte de baignoire pour les oiseaux.
Yeah.
Voilà pour toi. Maintenant, on doit trouver la maison, n'est-ce pas? Ah, voilà la maison. Ok. Oui, c'est très bien choisi, Isel. Sur la pelouse, elle se rend bien là. Ouais. Superbe. Plus? Tu as une idée de qui tu veux maintenant? Tu as fini? Ouais.
Mommy. I'm daddy. I'm your daddy.
Oh, tu veux le chien? Oh, tu veux le... Ok. Et ça. Oh, tu veux les deux en même temps?
Yep.
Attends, laisse-moi aider avec lui. Ok.
Meow.
Ok. Enjoy your game, Gaurav. Uh-oh. Des autocollants qui s'autocollent les unes sur les autres. Ok, chien fidèle. Sur les pierres. Oh, elle est à l'envers. Elle doit aller comme ça, n'est-ce pas? Mais si. Il y a de l'eau, oui, dans le jardin. Hiya, chess lover. Oh. Always sad when the kids are sick, no? Ah, ça c'est pour la ferme?
Yeah.
Une chèvre pour la ferme?
Yeah.
Laisse-moi voir si je peux retrouver la ferme pour toi, ok?
Okay.
J'oublie sur quelle page elle se trouve, cette ferme. Ah non, ça c'est pas une ferme. Ah, c'est parfait, la ferme. Elle va dans la basse-cour ou derrière une clôture ou quoi? Oh, elle veut monter en haut dans la grange? Oui, s'il te plaît. Tiens, on va montrer ça à ta maman, ok? Ok.
Hi, do you need any stickers? Did you change your diaper yet?
We did walk Papa though.
Not yet, really.
We got everybody breakfast. All right. Meland. What's a Meland? Meland. Is that like a Legoland or Disneyland, like some kind of an amusement place? Oh, Marianne Chiku is here today. Awesome. Jungle obstacle courses. Nice. Sounds pretty fun. potentially crowded because it's so fun. I actually like those kind of things myself, you know, independent of the kids. You only go to such a place if you're bringing kids with you, but if my kids would just leave me alone, you know, I would gladly play around with indoor obstacle courses and so forth. Things to climb and explore. Although it is more fun to be smaller and have the experience of the place being vast. They should perhaps make gigantic ones for adults. Ouais, ça va. Et toi, Jailer? So we've got rapid tournaments here starting in 8 or 9 minutes. If we get some more people signing up and joining them, they're not full yet. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't been able to do the commentary for a few weeks, so I don't know. I've done a few escape rooms, yeah. But even though my chess playing may give me a slightly, you know, intellectual versus physical kind of feeling, I actually prefer just something physical to play around in. And I don't love doing the like escape room puzzles. It's yeah, somehow it's a little bit stressful, whereas just doing physical stuff is kind of relaxing to my mind. I don't know. Thank you, Melora. Thank you. Very kind. I am all right. I did. I should check it off on my training plan for my tournament. I did go to bed last night in pretty good time because I stopped the Friday Night Fights commentary almost an hour earlier than I normally would, so I could get extra sleep. So let me mark on my plan what I've done and what I have to do. And hi, Oscar. How are you? So I went to bed at 11:30, needing to get up at 7:15, 7:30, we'll say 7.5. Pretty good. All right, and back today. You'd like to join, but you're eating. So hopefully the sections will kick off, and then you can join after you've eaten, right? We now have 4 people in the top section. So looks like that section could or should hold. 13 to 1700 needs 2 more people. And let's see about under 1300. Only 2 people, so they also need 2 more. 5 minutes to go to join. Oh, thank you. That's kind. I really enjoyed doing that as well myself. I was half tempted to sit here solving chess puzzles while people play the Saturday viewer tournaments and just, you know, stick to my training plan and regimen here. But no, it's been too long since I've been able to do the commentary on this, so we're gonna do the show properly. Oh no, Blunderfest showed up. Oscar Chess will hide. Thank goodness you've got a bowl of food to hide your face in. All right, There is Blunderfest themselves in chat. Drinking up your fear, Oscar. Drinking up your fear. I will try to find some time, Melora. I will try to find some time. This I haven't done in a bit. Let's do this. Let's do the real commentary. Of course, that depends on some players under 1,300 wanting me to watch and comment on their games. So, if you're out there, someone rated 500, someone rated 200, someone rated 800, someone rated 1150, come join our Saturday Rapid Under 1,300 arena. You can play with DG Chess and Marian Chiku, and we can chat about the games, have a little fun. Oh, that's perfect, Oscar Chess. If you've got nothing left to lose, if you're all plumb out of rating points. All right, we just need one more for the under 1,300s. One more for the under 1,300s. And bear in mind, you can play one game and then put the arena on pause, go read a book, come back and continue. Yeah?
Could you throw down the wipes, please? I'm gonna wash them.
Throw down some wipes. It's time to throw down. There are not very many here. Oh, you mean the dirty ones?
Yeah.
Hmm.
They should be hanging in a bag on the floor.
Is it just this one? It's almost empty. There's only like two.
But I'm doing them all because
Okay.
I'm trying to move diapers downstairs. Thank
Okay.
you.
Cool. Woo! All right. These tournaments are rated on chess.com. Yep. They're not FIDE rated. They're not USCF rated. They're not Canadian Chess Federation rated or British Chess Federation rated. The event lasts up to 3 hours. You play however much of it you want to. Osgram, like every time you play a game, there will be a button to say you want to play another game or to wait. So you don't wait for rounds to start or end, like in a Swiss tournament. You just play games as you want and as they come up. The under 1,300 arena with 1 minute to go only has 2 players, so that may not happen, unfortunately. 13 to 1,700 is also missing 1 player. 1 minute to go. Ah! Well, we may not quite have a tournament today, I'm afraid to say, in which case maybe I'll just do a training stream. Win-win from Melora's perspective, maybe. Win for me or win for all of you. But if anyone wants to play in the 13 to 1,700 range, we need 1 more player, and the link is here, and there's 30 seconds to get in and make it happen. Yeah, Boondock Striker, if one of these sections at least kicks off, then the players from the other section will be able to go join it. We just need one of the sections to at least hold. We do have a 4th player here in the 13 to 1,700 right now with 10 seconds to go, but often at the last moment, somebody gets disconnected by chess.com or by themselves, I don't know. So let's see if this tournament holds or cancels at the last moment. Looks like they've started it and kicked it off. So 13 to 1,700 is in progress. And we can click on the first games. And we've got DJ Creech offering a French defense to a D4 player. And Go Irish against Hokey Gamer. Super. All right, let me also check if the other section happened or was canceled. Under 1,300. was canceled. So anyone from the under 1300, if you want to, you're welcome to join the 13 to 1700, okay? And the 1700 plus arena has started. Got Blunderfest over here, and we've got Night Dreamer over here, and we've got Melora waiting for a game. Hopefully you'll get one soon, Melora. People join periodically throughout. Once the tournament kicks off, it's good. We get more and more people over the 3 hours. Don't worry. It shall not be long, Melora. It shall not be long, I believe. Satsanga, for the top section, 1700 plus, I think the tournaments are set so that someone has to have played 5 rated games on chess.com to join the event. Okay, so let me just go and fiddle under MooBot for a second. We're going to call the 1700 section the under 1700 section. That means anyone under 1700 is going to be welcome there. I'll just edit the MooBot like that. Rated at this time at rapid ratings on chess.com. I don't know exactly what the cutoff is, but on chess.com there's a bullet rating, a blitz rating, and a rapid rating. So someone has to have 5 rapid games to play in the 1700 plus section. Yeah, so hopefully those 2 links are up and working, and hopefully our under 1300 friends who didn't get a tournament can find their way over to the 13 to 1700 section and join it. You don't play rapid, too many cheaters. Okay. Sorry to hear that. All right. So an interesting setup here between Boondock Striker and DJ Creech. After White said, I'm not looking to play the French, Black said, then I shall give you this look here, a Dutch defense. All right, so one key square the players could contest here is this E4 square. And one weak spot in Black's camp to watch out for is the E6 square. You've done one daily puzzle and already found your way to our channel. Well, Pawnhubber, you are very lucky to have found us this quickly. Some people wander around in the darkness for ages and ages before they get lucky and stumble into the dojo and shed their noob status. Welcome. We're very happy to have you. This is a viewer tournament. They're playing a time control of 15 minutes plus 5-second increment. And let me see if I need to update the info anywhere here on OBS. Open to all to join. Right, so anyone can join at any point. Info looks okay to me. So viewers are playing each other, and then I provide some of my thoughts on the positions that they have. When they're done playing, a lot of people will go back and watch the show and compare what they were thinking to what I'm thinking. We are definitely not the best players in the world, but hopefully we are decent and friendly chess teachers. We've got a good community here of people who also help each other out nicely, and pretty good training plan. So Melora has started a game. That's excellent. Enjoy, Melora. Knight h4, an interesting move from white. Ideas are to fight this knight by playing f2, f3, or to go queen h5 and harass this king. That's sort of an incidental tactical threat here. Also, if you ever wanted to trade on e4, your knight would have to move, right? Like if you take, your knight's always going to get tempoed by this pawn. If you're really new, Pawn Hubber, here's like a very important trick for you. See these two pieces here that are contesting this knight on e4, and the knight's protected by black's pawn and bishop. If white took when they didn't have enough pieces to win the fight on e4, then after pawn takes e4, white can lose a piece. This is sometimes called a fork and sometimes called a double attack, the way this pawn is attacking two pieces at once. And that's why if you decided as white that you needed to trade off this knight, you either have to attack it a bunch more times before you take it, or I was taking with the bishop first instead of the knight. And then I can save this knight here. Okay, there's strategic reasons white wouldn't be totally pumped about doing it, but for now, white played knight h4, and black trades off the knight on e4. So that solves white's primary problem, actually. Getting that really good knight off the board. Now, in this position, white has two threats. One of them is super sneaky. The other is less sneaky. Queen h5 is the not so sneaky threat because people, I think, especially people who play the Dutch defense, who move this pawn all the time, are going to be accustomed to seeing a queen try to get to h5. And DJ Creech takes control of h5 with this knight, improving the piece, recontrolling e4. That's a perfect move for black. It's going to feel good to play that. You know, there are some moves that have their pluses and minuses, and when you play it, you're like, oh, I kind of want to do this, and I kind of don't. And then there are moves that just do everything you want them to do, and it just feels great when you play them, right? Like, you take a piece that wasn't on a good square, you move it to a better square, it makes room for your other pieces, and it stops your opponent's threats all at once. Oh, that feels good. Now, the secondary kind of threat from white is to go knight g6, which is not what white did. Previously, this was more of a threat because you attack the rook, and if the rook moves, you could take this pawn. But now the knight on f6 is defending that as well. But you see, previously, if black played something like bishop here, you go knight g6 for white, rook g8, and then you capture this pawn. Now, why doesn't the pawn take the knight? Because this rook has been developed by the trade on g3. When that h2 pawn recaptured right here, it's easy to miss this detail because you're thinking about the trade, but this is actually bringing this rook into the game to make attacks along the h-file. So black played knight f6. Knight g6 was playable here, but it doesn't accomplish a ton. You could then sort of come back here, and it's a better square than here. White could do this. It's not winning or losing. It's just an option. White went for queen a4 check, bothering the king a little bit, but I think queen d7 is fine. In my opinion, black would be totally happy to trade queens here, and black does. Queen d7, and white tries to work out some tactics here. Bishop b5. You have to play c6 in order not to lose the queen. And then after the bishop retreats, this pawn is in the way of black's bishop. And you can't get it out of the way of the bishop yet because white comes back to the well. And, well, that's the end if you're black, right? There goes your queen. So, bishop e2, bishop e7 was played. Now white could castle kingside or queenside or go for this knight g6 move. Knight c4 was played, b5, ouch. You remember this one, Pawn Hubber? That's a double attack or a fork from the pawn. It's probably going to cost white one of their pieces. And knight c4 is what we call a mistake. A move that unnecessarily gives your opponent a great opportunity, right? Boom, black seizes it. There goes the knight. Oh yeah, you're not a lover of mistakes? Me neither. Me neither. Yeah, when a pawn attacks several of your pieces, you know you're suffering some heavy losses because a pawn's not worth very much. See how my poor computer is doing. It's not dead yet. All right, queen retreats. Now black's got an extra piece against the pawn. You analyze all your losses. Well, if you analyze all your losses, you're probably not much of a noob anymore. Or if you've just started in the last week or two, you won't be a noob for very long if you're analyzing your games. Once you're analyzing your games, you're on a quick road, a highway to improvement. Now, the next step for black is to tuck the king somewhere and coordinate the rooks. So do we want to go kingside or queenside? Honestly, either looks okay. I would probably go kingside because there's these two pawns next to each other, whereas on the queen side, this pawn structure is a little bit airier. So if we castled queenside, what bothers me a little bit would be this move from white, using the b pawn as a hook to engage in some trading. And what white wants to do is peel away any number of the pawns that are in front of the black king, just so that the king becomes exposed, a weakness, a target. And here it's very hard for black to avoid trades because of the advance of this pawn, right? Like, how do you get away from white trading you? If you go here, white can still trade you. Right? So for that reason, I would go over this way. Black came back into his knight's outpost on e4. Okay, the knight's happy about that, but at some point you do need to decide what you're doing with this king, because, again, this tactic is rearing its head. Knight g6, attacking the rook. You can't take the knight because you'll suffer heavy losses on the back rank. And after this move, white can now win the pawn because you've abandoned it by improving your knight. Too much improving the knight. So here it was really time to get castled and worry about further improving the pieces later. This piece could also be improved with the move c5. That's a beautiful move, c5, right? It's improving your position, strengthening your bishop, starting to fight in the center, which is a reasonable thing to do when you've got an extra piece. But once again, why would you start fighting in the center with your king on e8, right? The next step here for black is tucking the king, and anything else is wrong no matter how good it is. That's what I'm trying to explain about why I'm bringing up c5. I'm trying to talk about priority. Knight e4 on its own is a good move, except it's not because we haven't castled yet and it allows knight g6. c5 on its own is a good move, except it's not yet because we should have our king castled. We have to watch out for bishop b5 as long as our king is here. White plays a move like queen b3. We can't be trading in the center. Right? So, yeah, that's priority in chess. The time comes where you have to take care of a certain thing, and it has to come before other things. The king on e8 here is sort of dragging down black's entire game. White gives a check on h5, and black blocks it. And white retreats after perhaps briefly considering a sack on g6. Like here, here, here. White attacks the rook and the king at once. But white was right not to go for this because black has one saving move. King e7 saves the king and saves the rook. And so then it won't be worth the knight that we sacrificed. Okay, so instead of bishop check, white should have seized the moment to go knight g6. After knight g6, black will never manage to castle kingside, and white will win the pawn on h7, and even though white's down a piece, it'll become a very, very close game. Now black is back in charge after bishop f3. Goes for a sack. Attack themselves. Again, you guys know what I think DJ Kraai should be doing, right? Castling. They go for it. The best advice you got was learn the opening book moves and then mix it up. I doubt that's the best advice you've gotten because I would advise a noob not to learn any opening book moves. But if it's working for you at the moment, that's cool. I don't want to confuse you with too much competing advice. So go with what you're enjoying and go with what's working for you. White now notices knight takes g6, and we get a crazy situation with both knights attacked, both rooks attacked. This move has been strong on basically every move until the move where white played it. Now it would have been better to take black's knight for free. I mean, not for free, for a couple pawns, you know, but white should be taking it. Instead, they take here, we trade the rooks, and black brings the king to safety, trapping this knight. And black is going to maintain their one-piece advantage here. White's one chance was to capture the knight on g3 with the pawn. White should make sure to trap this knight so it doesn't escape. White castles queenside just like black. Good choice. Black sacks the knight for a pawn. That's a strong move by DJ Kraai. I'm going to give Kraai some big props for this move. The basic way to play would have been here and here. It feels equal. It feels safe. Black still has an extra piece. But DJ Kraai made the effort of really thinking about the position. Not like I'm ahead and I just need to stay ahead, but like it's normal chess. What's the best I can do? Here's the situation. These two knights. Can mine escape? Can theirs escape? And ultimately, neither knight can escape, but DJ Kraai noticed that with knight takes f2, he can get one pawn for this knight, and then after white takes it, he can take back here, and white got 0 pawns for that knight. Or he or she, sorry. So DJ Kraai, by spotting this knight f2, is essentially winning a pawn for black compared to a standard continuation. So this is a very strong move. Good awareness from black as well as good calculation. And white definitely should play this, putting the rook on the open file and eyeing black's pawn. And now there's often more than one direction you can take a game. Black's got this extra bishop, and so the question is, how do you advance the game and, you know, play more towards a win? And my thought would be that this bishop here, that's tucked behind these pawns, should be opened up. So the plan should be probably to try and play the move c5 and to think about, is now the right time to play c5? And if not, what can I do to get ready to play c5? I mean, even if material were equal, this would be black's worst placed piece, right? Blocked in by this pawn chain. And I would be looking at, you know, what plan do we have to improve the piece? Oh, look at that! Kraai hitting that c5 move, and this has been all around a quite strong game by Kraai so far. Very nice. So it opens up the worst place piece. Also, since black's ahead, trades are something that black is pretty comfortable with. So this move should be good in every way for black. I think if I were white, I might wait for black to trade on f3. So I could take back with this pawn. And then this pawn would rejoin my overall formation. So what might I play here as white? Something like rook h6 is probably in the direction of what I would do. From there, the rook attacks these two pawns. I can back it up with my queen if I want. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that move here for white. White makes the trade on c5, attacking this bishop. Probably black recaptures here and leaves these bishops staring at each other. But you see Kriech taking some time, calculating. Should we throw in bishop takes f3 before taking back? Oh my gosh, I see a big no to that. Big, big no. Bishop f3 would be a big mistake, in fact. So, hopefully Kriech won't get too creative with that bishop f3, or will, correctly analyze what could happen in case of bishop takes f3. It's actually quite a bad situation for black if they take, because white takes with the queen. And now suddenly if you recapture this pawn, white has queen a8 check. And the rook's undefended, and black is instantly losing. Which means if black traded on f3 and white took back with the queen, we have a move from black, and black did not do this. Woo! Good job, Kriech. When this queen came here, you would have to keep this bishop to stop the check over here. So you'd have to play a move like bishop b8 here and not recapture this pawn. In which case, we've just gifted white this extra pawn and opened up our king, right? White's queen has this diagonal, the pawn's close to the king. So that would, and the bishop's worse on b8. So bishop takes f3 would really give up a lot, unfortunately, after queen takes f3. Kriech took by bishop. Great move. White brings the rook back to the d file. Hitting the queen. She's going to have to give way here. Queen e7, that's fine. c7 was the other move that looked pretty normal for her. So black's issue is converting the extra piece given that this king is pretty open, right? You could already see that for the first time in this bishop f3, queen f3 variation, right? Because there was no pawn back on b7, there was this queen a8 move that started to dangle over black. So what black needs to do is keep the king defended, which is not easy, and then either trade pieces or make progress attacking white, taking over prime real estate with black's pieces. So, for example, rook d8, queen f6, queen e5, targeting e3 and placing the queen on a nice central square, those kind of ideas. Okay, queen g3 cuts the king off from hiding. We get a check. So Kriech collects a pawn. And now watch out for that bishop. If bishop e3 hadn't been check, white could have played bishop takes b7 check. And then when black recaptures, queen takes e3. Now that the king is moved, that is sort of a threat, right? So let's say I played rook d8. White could go check here and take this piece. And there goes my advantage. Big oopsie, right? So here after king c2, black is looking to either retreat the bishop or protect the bishop with the move f4, which is a pretty good one, I think. Okay, trades on f3. So, now the main move is going to be maybe queen f3, attacking the bishop and threatening queen a8. And I don't know what black's supposed to do about that. I think Creech may just have walked into a no-no, an oopsie, a whoopsie-doodle. Man, do you see how little it took for the weakness around black's king to become a major factor in this game? I imagine that for Creech, it comes a little bit as a surprise. Like, they're just playing along with their extra piece. They're calculating clearly. They're like, you know, doing what they need to improve their pieces, trading, winning another pawn. And then suddenly, Boondock Striker is going to strike with queen a8, queen h8. They don't. If Boondock Striker played this move, you know, Creech would be looking at losing the game, and they would say, well, why did I lose this game? Where did it come from, you know? And the answer is this bishop f3 gives up the diagonal, right? Even here, you have to be so careful. You have to play f4 to protect your bishop. And it's not easy to find, but the thing that allows me to find it is that I have this sense of danger for black, even up a piece. I understand what my problem is. It is this king that is not tucked away behind pawns, and so I'm on the lookout for this queen f3, queen e8 kind of pattern. Okay, queen d3 was played. Black escapes, luckily, with only dropping one pawn and trades off another piece. So now black can't get checkmated, I would say, since white no longer has queen and another piece. And black makes a very good choice here and trades off the queen. The technical challenge here, you've got the extra piece. The technical challenge is basically perpetual check now. It's still that the king is exposed. There's no longer checkmate, but there's the idea of, you know, queen c6, queen a8, queen c6, queen a8, and different versions of that eventually. So trading queens lets black avoid all perpetuals, and now it's basically just paint by numbers to win this endgame as black. You keep your king here, so these pawns can't queen. You advance your extra pawns over here till one of them makes it down to the end of the board. Yeah, I've seen a lot of Boondock Strikers games before, and not playing queen e8 was surprising there. White had the time. It's a one mover. You've got those weak squares around the king. And here, white just resigned as this comes through. That's game. All right. Let's go find us another game. Well played to DJ Creech on that one. Let's go to the ChessDojo Chess Club. Click on the 1700 plus affair. Sure, let's look at the denouement of this endgame here up on the top board, so to speak. Eskis against Blunderfest on 23.99, one game away from 2400. But knight against rook should not normally win. White goes for rook d7, leaving this c pawn free to do whatever it wants. Hey Xinjiang, I think for the under 1700 group, you don't need any rated rapid games. You're not asking this because you want to create like a new account to cheat on, right? And the 1700 plus group, you need 5 rapid games rated on chess.com to join the 1700 plus group. All right, so Blunderfest gets this pass pawn moving, allows rook d7, has the check, and now needs to cover f7 with what? Knight g5, h4, queen e3, h takes g, queen e2 with a perpetual check for black. That's right, Boondock Striker. We watched your game. You should have taken the knight on g3 when it came in. Yep. Get your coffee. We'll see you again in a little bit. I mean, against h4, I don't see any way to cover f7, right? And if f7 goes, it's definitely mate. So I think the last plan is queen e3 for a perpetual. If c2, pawn takes, you get an extra queen, right? But now we get to demonstrate how clearly and obviously this is checkmate. 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 h4, queen e3. That's the idea. And this game will end in a draw. Black's checks are on these three squares. My friend Julian told me that it's only a draw by perpetual check if you have a triangle for the queen. To me, that doesn't look like much of a triangle, but it is a perpetual check. What? That's a very odd move. Okay, let me show you how I envision this perpetual check. Check here. Here, check. Here, check. Anywhere on the first rank, I go to E1. Anywhere on the second rank, I go to E2. Anytime they go to H3, it'll be coming from the second rank. I'm always on E2 when they're on the second rank, and I come back. Draw. This? I don't know. Don't tell me you're trying to win this game, Bunderfest. That's incredibly crazy. White says, you've got F7 covered. Can you cover F8, G8, and H8? Oh my goodness. I really don't know where the perpetual check is if the white king comes out. Queen e2 was so done. Well, now, there's a very easy perpetual. What are they doing? You've got 4 minutes, white. Huh? Queen h5? What about queen e4? Queening with check? How does Blunderfest always win their games? Maybe that's why the king couldn't run away this way. Maybe there were some lines where black would queen with check again. Let me see real quick, because king here. The only check I saw was queen f5, but let's look again. There's queen e1 and then queening, but I just don't believe it. That's likely to be a problem. So like here, we can't go here or here because of queening. So I was planning to go here in any case. They can make a knight. Do you think that's going to save black? Hardly. The knight's awkward when the king's right next to it like this. It's not helping at all. Oh my goodness. And instead, white comes up to h3. And instantly mated. Good Lord. Draw doesn't help what? Welcome to the party, Blib Up. All right, we got a fresh game kicking off here between Aaron and Konstantin. Banco Gambit, fully accepted. Chess.com says proudly, as if it really loves when this gambit gets accepted. Bishop f4 threatening knight c7 and or bishop c7, maybe even a bigger threat. Queen a5 would force white back, or would there be b4? No, there would be b4. Okay. Knight d5 is a way to stop someone from coming to c7, but it brings in the queen. You have to make sure that's not disastrous. Rook's attacked. Knight's attacked. I see one way to defend the two. See, black's played something. Castles. Wow. Konstantin says, I do not care what you think you're doing. Aaron, do not care. No cares given. You haven't brought out any piece on the king side, so whatever tactic you land on me on c7 or e7 or d6 or a8, Konstantin has either calculated or just trusts that there will be a counter blow or counter shot for black there. We could calculation check him just like Aaron is doing right now. Bishop c7. Queen e8. White's already chosen that. Okay. Knight e7 going for bishop d6. There was another branch where you go knight b6 going after this rook. After rook takes a6, you can't win a piece because of this. Knight c8, queen c8 will defend that piece. Here it looks like white's probably tangled and not winning anything. So white goes for knight e7, bishop d6, winning in exchange. And looks like white gets away with it tactically, right? The queen has to retreat. White can capture. Black doesn't have a counter blow because they only have one piece developed themselves. So white's going to be up in exchange, and then they can try and scramble out some pieces and get the king castled. White will be winning once they castle, if black's not able to achieve anything before white finishes e3, knight f3, bishop e2 castles. I was just trying to click on your game, Melora, when it ended. Unfortunately. I was just hovering over it over here in my thing, about to click on it, and it flashed 01 before I could get to it. So I'm sorry. I was hoping to see your game. I hear you, Dritman. If black still has a knight on f6, the risk is we'll be hanging our knight on d5 somewhere in that line, right? Bishop c7, queen e8, bishop b8, rook b8, a7, rook a8, and you wanted queen a4. Maybe knight c7 first, right? Because right here where you started to get foggy, you're defending the a pawn to prepare one of these knight moves. The opponent can take the knight, and that's not going to be very good. So I think at this point you're trying to go knight c7. Hit the queen. Queen here, knight a8. Reasonably promising. c4, trying to bother the opponent with bishop b4, maybe a3, maybe queen d2. Queen d2, knight e4. Okay, I'll just play a3. Check. Here. 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 This looks like a fine variation, Drit, right? You've got an extra exchange for white pretty comfortably. Yeah, this is a painting that my mother made. She's a painter. by, you know, profession, passion, etc. It's her representation of a chess dream, as told to her by me. Play another game, Melora. We'll watch it live. Queen a4 instead of a3. Yeah, but no matter what, Dripman, I think actually your line was good. Here, push. Rook a8 looks rather forced because that's a rook and a queen. And then just knight c7 and you take the piece. And again, white's only going to win one exchange, but it's going to take black some time to go collect a7 and a8. So I think it's a pretty pleasant line for you to play. There is nothing to fear but fear itself, Melora. Fear is the mind killer. You'll be fine if you just play some chess games. Nothing bad will happen. White's getting themselves castled, and the position is basically technically winning. Technically winning for Aaron here with rook against knight. Plus, white has an extra pawn. That said, it's still a pretty rich position, right? Black's got a nice strong center, and so the knights are good for now. With every trade, things will get better and better for white, though, because the knights will be less and less good in an endgame. So, like, if you took queens off this board, it'd be really easy for white. If you took a pair of rooks off the board, it would be starting to get easy. So, that's something for both players to keep in mind, that trades are quite favorable to Aaron. Morning, Viral Stigma. Yeah, I love this painting as well. Very glad that I got it. Yeah, last night's game was intense, yeah. You know what, Viral Stigma? Galrav is playing another classical game right now. He popped in to say hi at the beginning of the show and said he was playing a game like from, I forget if it was from like the Dojo round robin or the classical. Yeah, from the round robin. So, I mean, I was terrified for Galrav with the time usage yesterday, but maybe Galrav's got a lot of experience right now. You know, when you're playing a lot, you get a better and better sense of what you can do off a 30-second increment, when you can hold the line and so forth, right? So maybe Galrav was feeling fine yesterday. You know, somebody who's really practicing a lot is just going to have more confidence. So maybe Galrav was less worried than we were. But anyway, clearly somebody who is putting time into chess in a smart way, you know, currently getting better. Okay, there may be another Melora game that we can watch now. Melora giving us kind of a King's Indian to start with here. I don't know if you can still hear me, Melora. If you can, you should mute me so you can't hear me. You can rewatch this later and hear my advice. So Melora is saying, I don't know any opening. Maybe I should build a repertoire. Melora at 1600 chess.com, if they wanted to, could begin building a little bit of a repertoire. It's also, but it's optional. They don't absolutely need one, nor is it absolutely something I would say they can't do. It's an option. This is a rating level where you can start building a repertoire. I would say it's too early to try and have like a super professional repertoire with white and with black against e4 and d4 and c4. But it is a pretty good level at which to start building 1/3 of your repertoire, right? If you've got your white repertoire, your defenses to e4 and your defenses to d4/c4. I would say one of those three things you could start building. And you'll learn something as you're building it. Oui, chérie? Tu penses que j'en ai besoin?
Plap.
Moi, ça va. J'ai pas froid, moi. Toi, t'as froid.
This.
Ça,
Yeah.
c'est le microphone.
Yeah.
Quand tu parles dedans, on l'entend très fort.
Yeah.
Tu peux dire bouh.
Ouais.
Pourquoi on dirait ça?
Two.
Pour faire peur à quelqu'un.
Oh.
Ouais.
Come on, Celine. Go downstairs. Say goodbye to Daddy. He'll come in soon.
I will also, as I watch this game, between moves 5 and 15, right where we are now, I'm going to say if there's an obvious weakness in Melora's opening, right? And whether I think that would be improved by building a repertoire or just practicing the opening more, etc., etc. So knight c3, the choice here was e5. That looks logical to me. Bishop g5. h6 makes sense to me. Takes. Yeah, and now, like, you want to take with your knight, but they also want their knight. Each person wants the knight out of the way of the bishop. There's also the option to take. I would actually take that option if I were black. Get the dark square supremacy. I know knight d5 looks a little bit annoying, but actually you could take on b2 and drop back. And white has some juice, but you're never going to be worse here as black. It's very safe with the extra with the, when I say extra dark squared bishop, I don't mean we're up a piece, but just with the only dark squared bishop, black has got a very nice position. Melora goes for knight e5. We get this trade here. Well, that's nice for Melora. I would have been more afraid of... Oh, maybe on knight takes, Melora would have taken here. I was sort of a little more afraid of this line. But maybe knight e5 hg is fine for black. And then, like, if here you just do this and play on, like I said, with the dark squared bishop, looks fine for black. Okay, so black's doing fine in general, I guess. Throws in that check. Sure, yeah. Bishop f3. You can take here with queen or bishop. Either's fine. Black has a playable game. So this game shows no need for Melora to know this opening better, right? And note, Melora's playing somebody rated 450 points higher this round, right? So, all right, Oscar, I hope the same for you. So Melora's playing someone 450 points higher than them. If you're getting through the opening without suffering any pressure on you as black, then, you know, it's a sign that your opening is... that your opening play is fine so far. Melora's played the opening just like a tad bit slow, I guess we could say, but not terribly. A tad bit slow shows maybe like a either a little bit lower confidence or familiarity or perfectionism, right? It could be lower confidence, lower familiarity, or a bit of perfectionism. But it's not bad. This particular think is way too long on the recapture here. Because like if queen takes, you could always drop back here. Right? And if bishop takes, you could always drop back here or take b2 is even better, right? But basically, it's not a huge difference between bishop f6 and queen f6. And so one shouldn't spend tons of time on this move. That was 2 minutes on this move. Bishop f6 is slightly better than queen f6, but better than either move would have been to play one of them a minute and a half faster. White defends b2, defends the knight from doubled pawns, and maybe pressures b7. That's a great multi-purpose move, and you see Kavutskiy throws it out in a couple seconds. Kavutskiy is, of course, playing too quickly. The opposite, right? 14 and a half minutes, 12 moves in, and you've got a bad position as white. What, are you in a rush to resign? But this move is a good one. Accidentally. If you play really fast, you'll play accidentally some good moves and accidentally some bad moves, right? But everything you do will be some form of an accident. Yeah, sometimes when you try and evaluate stuff off of one game, it's not enough of a sample size, as Viral Stigma says. Other times, a chess teacher with tons of experience will actually get things right just looking at a very small amount of data. Just the intuition will do it for you somehow. So, a couple approaches for black. One is rook b8, clearing the way for this bishop to develop. The other is like c6 and queen c7, keeping that knight at bay with the pawn on c6. Malor opts for that. Perfectly good move, but you got to pick up the pace at some point. 9 minutes left to play the whole game, and you still have not finished developing your pieces. You want to have 9 to 10 minutes left when you're done with your development, I think, in an average rapid game here at this level. Just the simplest breakdown of your time would be 5 minutes for your opening, 5 minutes for your middle game, 5 minutes for your end game. Now, somebody who's studied openings should be playing their opening in less time, giving them more time for the middle game, as like one of the benefits of having studied their opening, so to speak. Or somebody who's just played their opening a million times and they've never studied it, but they've played it so many times they've got a built up intuition for it. Viral Stigma says that even just bishop e6 developing was tempting here, and just say, who cares about this? The bishop's well placed here. We pressure this, and here white is going to have trouble disentangling the bishop, and here black's going to get the open file for the rook, recover one pawn there. Bishop becomes menacing. But I think here in this line, Viral Stigma, it feels like black's given up a chunk of their advantage after white just plops the knight into d5, hitting c7 and f6. This pawn is anchored, so the second rank is not killing, and we've given up a pawn. So in fact, black might even struggle a little bit here with this pawn sack. Fight for equality. Whereas here, I would guess that the evaluation's minus 0.2 or minus 0.25 or something like that. In other words, that black is already a little bit better. Just a smidge. c6. Rook d1, pressuring the d6 pawn. Rook e8. Not really black's main priority. I think black's main priority would have been something like queen c7. We have to defend this pawn with our pieces. That's the big commitment of c6. So you're almost more likely to want your rook on d8 than on e8. Of course, you'd rather get this bishop to h3 and this rook to d8 if you could. But we have to defend this pawn. So queen c7 first and see how much pressure white puts on. If they go knight e4, planning f4 and stuff, we may have to defend the pawn with a rook tucked on d8. C'est la vie. It happens. Comes knight e4, pressure on the d-pawn. And a petite combinaison from Kavutskiy. Ideas to follow up with c5 here. Why? Because we didn't get our queen off of the d-file. All right, black's choices here are like rook e6, bishop takes c5, bishop e6, tempoing the queen, see what we get out of that. That makes a lot of sense, bishop e6 actually. Bishop e6, white I think can't play this because you go queen here, hitting the queen, and if they trade, you save your bishop. And if they don't trade, you also save your bishop. Like here, you go here, here, here. You save the bishop pair and you come out better in the endgame. So if bishop e6, I think the queen would move somewhere like this. I guess that doesn't do anything special for black. Okay, and how bad is giving up our queen here? Moderately solid, playable. Okay, black chose bishop h3, hitting this, finishing up some development. Looks reasonable. Let's see how it turns out here. There's bishop g2, there's rook here, and there's taking with the tempo on the queen. Okay, that's white's choice. The plan might be to go to one of these squares with the queen and collect this pawn. By the way, what's happened to black here, where white's gotten something going in the game here, right, with this knight e4 and knight d6 and c5, this has nothing to do with black building a repertoire, right? It has to do with familiarity with the opening, knowing that when you play c6, you're going to have to defend d6, right? And just recognizing how to do that, that rook d1 comes with this threat of knight e4. And you see my move, queen c7, would not have had the same problem because there's no c5. I'm just taking my queen off the file with the rook immediately. I'm dealing with these tactical threats in advance. So in terms of the repertoire, you know, no problem here from Laura with the opening knowledge. But now black is down a pawn after not covering d6 successfully. So Viral Stigma points out this tactic, rook g6, which I didn't even see because I was looking at another direction at the moment. Rook g6 also attacks h6, and if king h7, there's queen f7. So you may have to go this way, and that looks dead. The other thing that I was looking at first was queen b7, rook b8, queen c6, hitting this rook, and this also looked quite bad for black. But rook g6 is much better even. So here, Melora is going to need to play something like rook e7, defending the b-pawn. Or rook b8, which I like a little bit less, but pretty much this is white's primary threat. So that's what black has to focus on with their next move. White played a really strong series of moves here. Queen b3 was good. Rook d1 was good. Knight e4 was good. And knight d6 was good. That was a very strong series. Like, white just went into hyper mode there. Because white is super high rated, I kind of, assumed that they were going to play strong moves and looked at it from the perspective of Melora absorbing those strong moves from the opponent. But obviously, we shouldn't take things for granted of this type. Even strong players, they have to find their good moves. And now white comes streaming into the king side after king h7. I'm going to interpret that as Melora was looking at this, and thought maybe if I got off of that diagonal, right? Maybe if I got off that diagonal, there wouldn't be rook takes g6, but then there was queen f7. So these pawns here really needed to be guarded to put up a long defense here if possible. Black's down a pawn, but that's still very far away from where we would resign or even be certain that we're losing. So how to put up a tough defense? Let's start by covering our primary weaknesses here and considering developing the last rook pretty soon. After king h7, white's able to flood into the king side. And that was the game. So, Melora, congratulations. Well done. Bravo. Good fight. Good game. From what I saw, well, you can just rewatch the video to see everything we thought about the game, including my comments about opening and opening repertoire. And hopefully, when you rewatch that 20 to 25 minute segment just for you, you'll find that having played was worth it to get that little personal video for you. Melora confirms that the oops of king h7 was getting out of the pin because of rook g6, but without seeing queen f7. So we guessed that correctly. All right, let's go check out another game. We're going to go down to the other section. We're going to alternate sections here. So now we're going to go 13 to 1700, or really under 1700 section. Just a second. Amuse-toi. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, we're going to check out this game. Emmanuel, like Emmanuel Lasker, versus Go Irish. And white has this grip from these two pawns in the center, c4 and e4. It's known as the Marazzi bind after Geza Marazzi. And the idea is that these two pawns prevent black from gaining space for themselves. That's why it's called a bind. It's like, I've got space and you can't have any. That's sort of the idea from white side. Knight d5 comes in. Black almost always has to trade the knight when white plops it on d5. It's hard to live under that knight. White's going to open up the C file and look for some kind of play over on the queen side now with the bishop pointing at that weak square. And my feeling is that black has to be kind of careful here. I don't see a great square for the queen to go to, and she's going to need a new square when one of the rooks comes to C1, right? She doesn't have A5, and B6 has this kind of a problem, right? Bishop attacks you, and the knight gets stuff. So this queen needs a new square. Is it B8? Is it back to D8? You don't have a lot of space here, right? So there's not a lot of good choices here. Viral Stigma says usually E takes D is even better. Okay. And somebody else says that, black should be calculating this move, knight takes C4. I guess here white can take the queen, you take the queen, and then take the knight with an extra piece. Or maybe take the rook also with an extra piece. So knight c4 didn't work yet. Knight d5. E d5. If knight c4... How do we justify this? We go like queen here. B5, B3. I feel like this queen sack's actually going to be playable for black. That's my strange instinct here. 2 pieces against the queen, but we're attacking a couple rooks. We're attacking a central pawn. We've already got 1 central pawn, and all white's dark squares are weak, and the remaining light squared bishop is pretty trash. Maybe I'm too highfalutin. Maybe I'm too addicted to the sacks, but I think that this has the feeling of a brilliant operation for black. So I definitely want to throw in b5 and b3 to weaken more dark squares. Right? I could already have started this here, but I'm less confident of this version. So knight c4 was interesting against ed5. That said, let's go back to the game. cd5, black finds this square for the queen. White puts a rook on c1, and now to justify queen d7, we have to do something with the bishop c8. White has, so to speak, a winning plan of going rook c2, rook c1, rook c7. Before that happens, black needs a rook on c8. You can't put a rook on c8 unless you move the bishop. All right, black looks to make some fight in center. Yeah, I am addicted to sacrificing. It's true. My favorite song about an addiction, Dripman, is perhaps called Semicolon. It's definitely about semicolons. Do you know the song by Lonely Island called Semicolon? Yeah, it's called Semicolon. That's my favorite song about addiction. And when I was young, semicolons were an addiction of mine. Just like sacrifices now. Viral Stigma says that f4 wins. Uh-oh, that's another problem with putting the queen on d7. Hello. Queen d7. f4, knight g4. Would have kept the game alive. So now rook c1, e6, cutting off the queen's defense. f4. And the knight has nowhere to go. You could do this. 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 Here. Oddly, Viral Stigma, this line of f4 just wins. I think black has 3 pawns for their crummy knight. It's not necessarily worse than the position they were already in. Right? I mean, I still prefer white's position. I'm not saying it's bad to play f4. I just think black doesn't stand that much worse than they did before. So I think, is it only 2 pawns? D5, took E5. If knight F3 and knight G5. Is black not allowed to defend this? F5 check. Maybe. It's messy. I'm not going to spend 10 minutes calculating this. It's a bit messy. So with just rook c2, idea rook here, white's position might be just as good as with f4. Because I just think black's in really, really tough shape. Now white goes for f4 after the queen gives another tempo. Wait, after the queen gives a tempo of giving the knight a space to go to. That doesn't make sense. How did it end, Gorkam? It looked like you had a crazy complicated position. Rook c2, queen e7, giving the knight a retreat square, 2 minutes, and then sending the knight to its retreat square. That's just a loosening move for Emmanuel, who should have probably just continued with the plan, which was going well. 10 blunders, that's a lot in one game. You really crammed them in. He really crammed in those blunders. Yeah, Viral Stigma. It seems like now it might be consistent to trade. But white's starting to get loose on the e file if black gets to play ed5, right? We're not trading on e6 because we want to. We're trading on e6 because we don't want black to do this and start looking at these pieces too closely. Varels is right. You have to attack the higher rated player. Okay, so white goes now for rook c7. And yeah, now black is, I think, should try here and rook e8. And it's not so clear or so easy, is it? I don't see how white holds it together, obviously. King f2, queen h4 check. Bishop f2, bishop takes d4, and queen takes e2. So I'm assuming this, right? And then trying to figure out what white can do about this. Sorry, I shouldn't have given variations blindfold like that. So if king f2 to defend it, there's queen h4 check. Attacking this pawn and the king, you have to come back, and black can come back. That repetition would be like equal, right? Okay, if white wants to keep an advantage, this move also doesn't work because of trades. And then queen here. Unless white can do it like this. Trying to win the rook, black has to trade for all these pieces. And then black is probably winning. Yeah. Okay, rook c7. Go Irish retreats the queen. So they're not feeling how important it is to open up this file and unsettle white's pieces. Oh, I see what you mean, viral stigma. You're saying like even in the line I was saying, ED, rook e8, could you play knight e6 to deal with the whole problem based on this, 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 this? Wow. Caramba. So here the white queen is covering d5, so black can't get out of it. And here, after takes, wow, Stigma. I don't see what black does about this, actually. I mean, I have queen d8. Pawn takes. I can't take this rook because this is even worse. So I have to take like this. Doubles. The game sort of goes on, but it seems like you definitely dealt with the e-file issue, and you remain with a good-ish position for white. Actually, there's this move. So maybe I should do something riskier here and take like this. Now bishop here, 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 here. Black is doing fine. They saved the game. Hard to evaluate. I imagine that knight e6 wasn't a thing viral until the rook was on c7 at least. Because in a previous position, if you do this, 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 black doesn't have to take. Black's got a knight against two pawns. It is complicated. Okay, let's go here and try to take this pawn or this pawn. Try to get back one of these pawns right away. And I'm preventing f5 building a chain because I have knight e4 and pawn takes defending the knight. Yeah, so I would guess that white didn't have knight e6 until the rook was here. But now that the rook is here, white does have knight e6. Black moves the queen off of this line here, and learning from viral stigma, white has a very simple combination here actually. Takes, boom. There's no reason we have to lead with the knight, right, Stigma? If we lead with the pawn, we're not sacking anything except our opponent's pieces. Now, okay, many of us love sacking our own pieces, but who doesn't like just sacking the opponent's pieces? That's honestly the easiest way to win a game, is to just with your opponent not even being aggressive or in an attacking position, to just start taking their pieces. It doesn't get any clearer than that. Emmanuel has just played d takes e6 in the actual game. So I wonder if they're noticing this unusual knight e6. That would be quite a blow at this level to catch that opportunity. It'd be very, very strong. What's my phone doing? Beeping at me weirdly. Oh, great news for my family today, folks. Great news for the family. Oh, saw the spot but didn't see the tactic, right? Focused on the right point, brings this out, puts the pressure on. It's probably winning for white, but this move was much more winning. This move's just a cruncher. You can't take it. You win the pawn for free. This pawn drops. You're breaking through on all these squares. Bishop c4, you give black time to either sack a pawn on their terms with d5 or try to put up resistance with knight c5, which is what they will do. And you can calculate b4, knight e4, but nothing here is ever going to be as good as if you had just rolled over black with knight e6. Right? And this is kind of that thing where you sort of have to look at moves in different orders. Like you go bishop c4 trying to then take on e6, but what if you just take on e6 and then play bishop c4? Yeah. I mean, I didn't expect this would be found, but it's exactly what white needs to learn to spot to get to the next level. It's just that extra degree of, originality of thought and searching for opportunities. A little more dynamic and precise approach to things. If f5, there's knight e4, which doesn't look so good. It's very murky now. Maybe you have to spend a move defending your e-pawn because your queen is in line to get hit by knight e4 otherwise. Aye. Viral, you think maybe rook g7 now, huh? Oh, opening up bishop h6 as well. Merle says play e5. Just get rid of that e-pawn rather than defending it. You know what? What I'm finally noticing, another candidate move. Another interesting candidate move here might be rook e1. That's not a straightforward move. But the idea is we're developing our last piece, right? And we're looking at some key squares. The thing I'm not sure about is knight e4, and then if I go somewhere d5, how do I make it all come together? Maybe I have to go to d1 instead, so I'm on the d5 square, and then here I can do like here, 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 here. Not quite. Not quite. I don't think rook e1 works. Okay. So e5. If takes, maybe simply this move. And if d5, then also this move. I see. And then if knight e4, well, maybe it's just positional if knight e4. Queen here, here, here. And just this pawn structure holds that piece at bay. The knight's on the right square for the structure. Black's a little slow to develop. The b pawn's attacked if you try to get this out. Maybe just a simple positional approach for white. Queen c2 was played. That's the move I expected, defending the pawn. Far simpler than some of the madness that we were looking at. Queen c2 was played. That's You're welcome, Melora. Right on. 1 minute left for Emmanuel. Ay, ay, ay. This knight c5 hitting e4 cost Emmanuel 3.5 out of 4.5 minutes that they had, leaving them with just one now to play the whole game. And we're sort of at the beginning of the middle game. It's brutal time pressure. 5 seconds per move is not an amount of time that lets you maneuver your way through a middle game. Okay, Viral Stigma had one more cool idea. We're going to look at f5, knight e4, knight e6. And if knight takes here, rook g7, king here, bishop d2. And we can furthermore say that Viral's idea is that after bishop e6, undefending the rook, Viral's not going to recapture and not going to save the rook. Is going to play bishop c3. You can take more pieces, and then rook g6 is the idea. Now, white's given so much material that queen e5 is winning for black here. We could also try rook e7 to prevent queen e5. And white can just barely get a draw here. An intense line. Thank you, Viral. Another thing I would say is white could maybe just have sacked an exchange and kept a small edge as well, just like this. Idea is to put this here and this here and just play it positionally. Positionally down an exchange. Yet another option. There were a lot of options. Queen c2 was the simplest. Black takes on d4. Wow. You got to recapture, white. You just don't have time to second guess this. If you don't take back on d4, black will take on e3. Like, there's only so much you can do here. 15 seconds to recapture. You can't do it. You're going to flag. Now there's rook g7 threatened. So if black's plan was rook f4, I guess they're going to f8. It's not a good plan. The Viral Stigma, you would have never looked at f5, knight e4, knight e6, sacking your queen if you knew you could just wait here and black would take on d4 and set up your windmill for you like this, right? You would never have sacked your queen for this setup if you knew you could just recapture for this setup. Blibup saying we've got a full house in the under 1700 group. 17 players. Excellent tournament. Yeah. Let's see. Is there like a race for first place or some people fighting in the standings here? No, it doesn't look like that many people have played. It doesn't look like anyone's really played more than 2 games. So there's not like a rush. Not like a rush to win the tournament. An hour and a half in. People are taking it easy, you know, playing a game or two here or there, taking a break, chilling. That's cool. That's cool. Rook f7 to keep the rook out of g7. Now white's got a very pleasant and sort of simple position in that you've just got the two bishops raking the board and no tactics. On the other hand, 40 seconds, the rook on c7 gets forcibly traded and evicted. We've got probably a long game ahead of us, and white does not have the time for a long game. So here white can either go rook f1, still playing for f5. White could play f5 immediately. White could go bishop takes c5, knight takes c5, rook d1. Black has bishop d7 there. White could play e5, trying to crack the defense of the knight. Several options, but white's just going to flag while looking at them. Melora plans to build a simple repertoire, responds to e4 and d4 just a few moves, because you take too much time in the opening. I would suggest one other experiment before you do too much building, Melora. Why don't you just try playing a little faster in the opening and see how that turns out? You see what I mean? Speed up your play a little bit and see if that leads to real problems or not. If you speed up your play and your position is still fine at move 10, then the answer wasn't to build an opening repertoire, it was just to play a little bit faster. So I'm offering you a much simpler solution that you should try first. All right, so white goes after the e6 pawn, and against bishop d7, you can also play rook d1, preparing to sack it. You can also go queen b3. So black is still under major pressure here. Black trades the g pawn for the e pawn, which also adds the idea of rook e1 for white, putting pressure on this. Black's position is very tough, but I think I would bet on the 2 minutes over the 20 seconds here. Nearly 3 minutes. b5. Yeah, get that bishop out of here. If it retreats, c4. This move, beautiful, kills white's pressure. I would just say I think black could have done this the same thing, but without gf5, right? b5 on this move. Right? Beautiful. Similar idea, but in this position here, white's got the isolated e-pawn, and your king's just a little better protected. Oh, white grabs a pawn. That is a cost. And the king is open. White should certainly have chances to give a perpetual check before flagging that they could try for. Does Kid or Nimzo cover most white openings like d4, c4, knight f3, etc.? The Nimzo does not, Melora. That's the problem with the Nimzo. The Nimzo is very good if white plays d4, c4, knight c3. But the Nimzo is very move order dependent. If white plays c4 on move 1, if white plays knight f3, g3, d4 without c4, hundreds of options. The Nimzo does not cover any of that at all, right? So, unfortunately, the Nimzo is like a better opening than the Kid, but it requires a much more complicated repertoire with hundreds of other lines. The Kid is really universal, but it's sort of a second-tier opening. As in, objectively at Super Grandmaster level, it does give white a small advantage, which should not be an issue. But yes, please try my solution first before you spend the time on the openings. Also, Melora, my advice, if you want to start building your opening repertoire, pick only one part of the repertoire to build first. Don't try and build e4 and d4 at once. What do you play as white mostly, e4 or d4 yourself? Rook f1, nice move from Emmanuel with dwindling seconds on the clock. The rook gets near. Queen f6 could also be an escape valve to get into a rook ending. Now, basically, you should never lose as white in this simple a position. 5 seconds per move. I mean, you just have to keep playing moves. There's just no losing. Black gives a rook trade, and white's completely winning after the rook trade. Just walk the king straight to b6. White takes a timeout with the pawn. Unnecessary. Folks, it's all about racing the king. You see, white's king could have turned the corner on the black king and won the game. But after b4, black's king is in time to block white's king out. Now, in order to win the game, white has to make a pass pawn on the king side. Then when the black king heads that way, then you go to the queen side. You play e4. Okay. No, it's fine. It's fine to play random stuff. Do you want to give me, if I take the time, Melora, to give you 2 minutes of really clear advice, what are the odds that you would follow it? I'm happy to tell you what to do, but I don't want to waste my breath if you're gonna if you don't want to hear it or know it. It's very, very clear to me what to do. You will follow it? Okay, so here it is, Melora. Since you, from your previous experience, are basically an e4 player, what I recommend you to do is to start by building your repertoire for black against d4, not e4. In your e4 games as black, you're going to rely on just having more of a feel for e4 positions, more experience with them, and having played both sides of e4. Okay? So you're only going to build your repertoire against the closed openings, d4, c4, knight f3. Okay? Same with your play as white. You're not yet going to build your white repertoire with e4. You're not going to build out a line against the French, the Sicilian, e5, Caro-Kann, etc. Not yet. Okay? You're going to focus on one thing. That way you'll get deeper on what you're doing. And it'll teach you how to develop an opening repertoire later for the other areas of your openings. So first you're just going to build a repertoire against d4. A second very important, for your repertoire against d4, do you have the most experience with the King's Indian? It would definitely be easier to build a King's Indian repertoire if you feel like you enjoy the opening. But if you hate playing the King's Indian, then that would be a reason for us to build a different repertoire. Incredible that Emmanuel pulled that game off with just seconds on the clock, huh, folks? That was wild. And that pulls Emmanuel up into the shared lead in this section along with DJ Creech. Let's see if it will be Baymon or Blib Up who joins them. The winner of this game can also get to 5 points. You play mostly kid. Yeah, but what I'm curious about is how do you feel about the kid? Like when you think of the kid, do you think of trauma or do you think of like it suits you or you enjoy it or you want to play it more or not? I just want to know if it, like how you feel about the opening. Like your basic instinct is, I want to play this opening or I want to throw it in the trash bin and start over with something else. Because the most practical decision is actually going to be the decision that follows your heart on this. We have to go with that decision. Hey, Go Irish, we just followed your last game, so if you want, there will be a video recorded where you can look at what we were thinking about as you were thinking, compare it later. You probably stay with it. You like it more than basic Queen's Gambit type positions. Great. So clear enough. Yes, Anouk, my advice probably by default would apply to you as well. I mean, everybody's different, but at the cover level, yes. But it also depends how strong you are, Anouk, right? This is advice specifically from Melora. Melora's 1650 on chess.com. That's right around the right level to spend a little bit of time building one's first repertoire for one part of chess openings, but not all chess openings, right? If you're 2000, I might say you could build like a full repertoire for every opening, right? And if you're 1200, I would tell you don't build any repertoire yet. Nothing. Okay, so it depends on certain factors. I've seen a game of Melora's just now. I know that Melora has a certain basic understanding of how to play the King's Indian. wants to develop all their pieces, has a sense of where they should go, has a perfectly fine sense of the king's Indian defense. Oh yes, Blibup, it is high time to mute. Good luck to you as well as to Baymon, who I also have very friendly feelings towards. Good luck to both of you. But yeah, time to mute. I can neither confirm nor deny that the position is wacky as long as you're listening. All right, Melora, so you're going to go with the King's Indian. That's going to be practical. It's going to get you some dynamic positions. You want to get the positions where white advances d5 and you get to play f5 and attack on the king's side. Those happen probably about half the time. The other type of position is the sort of position you had in the game we just saw where your e-pawn trades for their d-pawn, right? They keep a smaller space advantage with the c-pawn and the position's sort of half open, half closed. And those are the two main structures that you're going to have to learn. There's not like a million others, so it's going to be pretty consistent. You'll be learning the themes for that. You know what else is convenient, Melora? Kostya has a repertoire for the King's Indian defense already built on ChessDojo. Do you want that? Do you want Kostya's repertoire? That's how I learned the King's Indian myself a year ago. It was off of Kostya's repertoire. You've seen it on the site, yes. Okay, there's some kind of cost for it. What does it cost, Melora? I can't see because I have a ChessDojo subscription, so it's included with my subscription. In other words, anyone who has the training plan has free access to all the opening courses. If you don't have the training plan, what does it cost to get one of our opening courses? Nope, don't do that, Melora. Don't build your simple e4 yet. Let's do King's Indian for you. But I have advice for you about your other openings as well once we figure out how you're going to study d4. Okay? I have advice for all your openings. Don't worry. Okay, so yeah, folks watching this game like Gorkum, rook c8, kicking the queen. Available is rook c2. White tries to stop rook c2 and threaten bishop b3. Another choice for Baymon is to castle. Another choice is just to tuck the king on g1 and leave the rook here. Play h takes g and just keep playing with this rook here. Bishop b3. Yeah, that wins an exchange. Nice spot by Baymon, and Blibup, this rook c4 move, I guess, was not quite right. What should Blibup have done? Bishop b3 is super annoying. Bishop c2. That was the move for Blibup when you review this. That was the move that cuts off bishop to b3. And a similar move that's probably also acceptable is bishop e4. This nicely actually improves your bishop, right? It's got all the diagonals. And if they come here, you just come here. You're keeping control of the central light squares with your queen after any bishop trade. And your rook is getting access to c4 and c2 eventually if those bishops trade. Meanwhile, if white doesn't go for bishop b3, your bishop's attacking g2, which is a little awkward for white. They have to decide what they're doing about g2. If they play f3, then there's this kind of stuff. So you could go bishop d5 simple or bishop f3 complicated. So two good moves here for Blibup. Bishop e4 and bishop c2, both directly dealing with the light square diagonal using the light squared bishop. Very logical, both tactically and strategically here. So in the game we get this. And now white's up in exchange with some technical difficulties, but yeah, you just go to the open file with this rook. White's looking in very good shape. Melora, you have the subscription. So that King's Indian Defense course is free to you, right? Yeah. You're set, Melora. What an easy plan. Okay? So Melora, the one repertoire you're going to build, you're just going to follow Kostya's repertoire. You don't have to build it for yourself, okay? Do the starter 12 to 1800 one, not the expert 1800 plus one, okay? Yes! Oh, I'm so glad to hear you'll listen to me. I hate spending 20 minutes giving advice and then having someone say, no, I'm going to do this other thing. I've got a plan for your other openings as well, Melora, okay? So here's how it works. And Anouk, thank you for telling me. $30. Okay. I think I'd wanted the opening courses to be priced at $20 or $5. But there you have it. It is what it is. At least they're free for people in the training program, which at least is nice. Okay. And I imagine they're still cheaper than Chessable courses, even at $30. All right, so Melora. So, King's Indian, that much is clear, right? You're going to spend a few hours learning Kostya's repertoire. You're going to repeat it. Maybe play some... a key factor is playing some sparring games. He's got 20 sparring positions, which is a lot. So you can start slowly working through those, trying to play those sparring positions... let's say 4 times, and then the next position 4 times, etc. Start working through those with somebody else from the training program or any chess buddy that you've got. Now, for your other openings, what you're going to do is you're playing a mix of stuff without a plan. Instead of trying to build a repertoire, you're just going to be a little more consistent about how you play and rotate your lines. So, for example, when you're playing e4, e5 as white, you're going to say, for 6 months, I'm going to play the Ruy Lopez. And then for 6 months, I'm going to play the Scotch. Or for 6 months, I'm going to play the King's Gambit or the Bishop's Opening or the Vienna. You pick. But instead of messing around every game, right? Instead of messing around every game, there's going to be a certain consistency to what you're going to do. You're going to play something long enough to really get into it and develop your skills with the line. And then at some point you'll move on and you'll play another line for a while. You're just going to be learning the opening based on practice for now. You can consider building a repertoire for white or against e4. Later on, once your King's Indian repertoire is set and you're not working on it anymore, and once your rating's gone over 1800. Okay, so 2 conditions before you start building the next part of your repertoire. Reaching 1800 on chess.com, rapid, and being really solid on your King's Indian repertoire. But in that interim, what you're going to do with your e4 openings as black and as white is you're going to pick a line, you're going to practice it for 6 months, and then you practice something else, right? So I hear you mentioned, for example, as black, Sicilian, or Carl Khan, right? Play Sicilian for, 6 months, right? Then play Carl Khan for 6 months. Then, well, hopefully around then you'll be hitting 1800 or 1750 to 1800. You could try a third opening, or you could try a different Sicilian, for example. Like if you've played the Dragon Sicilian, you could switch to the Sveshnikov. If you played the Sveshnikov, you could switch to the Khan. You could try a different Sicilian for a few months. For 6 months again, I would say. Something like that will be a good plan for you. It's got enough consistency and repetition that you'll get deeper and better at the openings you're playing, so you'll learn your plans, but you'll still rotate occasionally so that you learn new ideas and don't get stuck in one rut. And it'll improve your play in all the E4 openings to have those occasional rotations. You're going to be 2,000 by the end of the year? Great. Once you pass 1,800, we can check in about the next step in your opening repertoire. Does that sound good? Do you have any questions about that advice so far? A6. Rook comes into the 7th. Pawn goes bye-bye. White plays sort of a passive move here. I would be inclined to trade, right? Just take it and then play either rook d1 or rook b7. All right. We've got a deal. Tenemos un trato. I look forward to our Melora hit 1800 conversation. That will be all the thanks that I'm looking for. Okay, Blibup's trying to mix things up, which is exactly what you need to do when you've got the bishop pair against the rook. You got to mix things up. We can't contain this rook here once it's gotten through. If you had a position with no fully open files and white's rooks weren't making progress, then you could try and play more solidly and positionally as black, maybe down in exchange, try and hold the position closed. But here, you just got to try and mix things up. You can't handle this rook long term. So, yes, you got to play these kind of aggressive moves. E4 and F5 from black are exactly what's needed. Bishop gets out from G7, starts to attack this pawn right on. D7, there's bishop takes rook. So this guy's in some danger. One thing white can do is just accept that the pawn's going and prepare to trade pieces after bishop d6 with like bishop c5. So you could play something like this and say, if you come here, then whatever, I come here. Right? And just try and force some trades. Oh, rook b7 was played. Okay, so that's where we're at. Baymon's playing really well, unfortunately, from Blibup's perspective, right? As far as like trying to get some counterplay. With e4 here, if white went slow, black has ideas of like f5, rook e8, bishop h6 or f4. There's stuff that can come in. But instead of taking the pawn, Baymon immediately starts doing this. What this means is that it's too late for Blibup to do something like rook e8 for this kind of counterplay, right? Because d7, it just comes too fast. This queen distracts you from your, endgame tactics and naggery that we're looking for here in the center. And it's by one tempo, right? And once black can't go rook e8 and has to start defending against this pawn, now white has time for things like collecting pawns on the side. So it's really perfectly done by Baymon, much to Blibup's misfortune or dismay. And now this would be the next target because we need to queen one of these pawns. You could start with bishop c5 or bishop d4, improving the bishop, but this is going to be the target here. All right, Paul saying, imagine that situation's reversed. Somebody plays mainly 1d4. Would you say to stick with that, pick one line to consistently play against d4, and work on a repertoire against e4? Paul, if they're around Melora's rating level, yes. So if this theoretical person were in the 1600s and they play 1d4, I would advise them that the first piece of the repertoire to build would be a defense against e4. And yes, Sushan, of course you can ask me whatever you like. Paul, that would also depend on their appetite for working on an opening repertoire. Melora is asking to do it. If somebody weren't asking to do an opening repertoire, to me at 1600 it's still optional. So if they weren't saying they wanted to, I wouldn't necessarily encourage them to do it. I might tell them, just go do some puzzles, analyze your games, and read a book, right? There's probably a book. I don't know offhand what the recommendations are for the books. for that exact level. I have to sort of like look it up. So let me go. 1600chess.com is probably the 15 to 1600 cohort here on ChessDojo. So a book recommendation would be to start Jeremy Silman's How to Reassess Your Chess, or to read Michael Steen's Simple Chess, right? I might recommend something like that instead of building an opening repertoire. So that does depend on the player. But if they were keen to start working on their openings and they were at Melora's level, then I would say, yeah, start with the opening. Nice repositioning from Beimon. This game is just... I mean, I don't know how Blibup's going to feel about this, but Beimon played very well this game. Like, no chances were given, really. From the moment Beimon won the exchange. The technique, the technical part, has been just simply perfection. Now, this bishop defends both pawns, takes away space around the king painfully. The rook stays on the 7th rank, targets the a-pawn, it gets defended. Now the next piece improves. The king comes and attacks these pawns. It's literally technically perfect chess. Now maybe king g6 to go for mates. Otherwise, king g4 to contain the pawn. Rook f6. Every single detail. I mean, all we can say is bravo to Beimon, right? I mean, yeah. Sometimes your opponent just plays great. We shouldn't always hate that, you know. It's a nice thing for others to play well. All right. I think my answer to Paul was clear enough, it looks like. The reason for that, like building the repertoire on the black side of the opening that you don't play as much as white, is that basically you've got twice as much experience in the openings that you play as white and black as in the opening that you only play as black, right? So you're counting on your experience to cover you in the openings that you play more often, and that probably you play more often because they also suit you more. So you don't need to work on those as much, and then you go work on a repertoire in the openings that probably are more of a problem for you. Historically, almost all the players I've ever done profiles on and studied their games, if they had a preference between e4 and d4, which maybe 80% of them did, those who played e4 played better on the black side against e4 than against d4. And those who played d4 played better on the black side against d4 than they did against e4. So when I was switch hitting against e4 players, I would tend to play d4 or c4. And against d4 players, I would tend to play e4, just because they were generally weaker in the other side. And so what you're doing here is you're focusing on the other side from the very beginning of your development. Well, I know 1600 is not the beginning of a chess player's development, but it's the beginning of a repertoire development, right? It's still somewhat early in your development. Okay, you've got all the tactics down to have gotten over 1200. You've got good board vision. You're calculating a couple moves accurately. You've got a sense of dynamics and strategy. You know some end games. So it's obviously not the real beginning of a player's development. But usually a player around 1600 is still going to have a very clear strength or weakness between closed games and open games. They'll have their preference, right? You're a gambiteer or you're a maneuverer, right? You're an attacker or an endgame player. Very few people at that level are going to be both yet, right? So therefore, we build the repertoire in our weaker area. That's also balancing out the work we're doing, right? It's like if you're right-handed, it's just doing weights with your left arm instead of your right arm to start off with, before doing full body and spending hours doing everything, right? It's just starting with where you're weaker. Okay. So, Sushan played 2 OTB classical tournaments, played some good quality chess, but in almost all games was in time pressure and spoiled many winning positions into losses and draws. How can I avoid this? I've been doing calculation training, and I've become a calculator, and I look to go very deep. So when you're getting in time trouble, it's because you're calculating more than you used to, right? Ah, blub up. Yeah, you were planning to not recapture on e6, but to play rook b2.